Hey guys, this is my first ever top 10 video. I'm not really one to do these kinds of things, but this is one time where I feel that doing this kind of thing is actually a must. So, well yeah, I'll start it off with my number 10, which is Dragon Ball Xenoverse. And before I get too into it, I will admit that I never got around to getting the DLC, so it might be up here because I never played the DLC. It might be up here because, you know, various reasons, but or up at 10 and not lower because, you know, I never played the DLC. Maybe the DLC would have changed my mind on where I would place this game as one of my favorites, but it's on the list at the very least. Now, with all that being said, I will say that this was a complete tie between this and Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi 2, because me and my older brother, that is, we spent a lot of our childhoods just beating the crap out of each other in this game, which it was a lot of fun. My brother's favorite character was Teen Gohan, or was Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan. And this is when Super Saiyan 2 didn't have going Super Saiyan didn't have a time limit, so when you went Super Saiyan, you just had to know your moveset, and you had to be aware that you were going to be doing a little bit extra damage, and you were going to be faster, but there wasn't really any restriction for it. You were just permanently really powerful. So, I don't really have much else to say. It's a fighting game. It's very nice. I like it a lot more than Mortal Kombat. Honestly, it's just a preference thing, I think. Mortal Kombat's a great game, or the Mortal Kombat games are great, but I just prefer Xenoverse over those because it's, you know, it's just more in my alley of fighting games. But with that being said, that covers my number 10, and my number 9 is Final Fantasy IX. Now, Final Fantasy IX is on this list almost entirely because I spent so much time playing it. It would have been higher, but the fact of the matter is that as much as I love JRPGs, it could be said that in the fact that it is a JRPG, it is still lacking things. So, I don't know. I mean, as much as I like JRPGs, they do lack in some departments. So, there is that as a thing. So, with all that being said, though, it is definitely one of my favorite games ever. The only game that I have that, or the game that I had that came to a tie with it, in its own series is, well, let's see, probably Tactics, or Final Fantasy Tactics, because I honestly loved Final Fantasy Tactics to death, but I think the only reason I would have put this above it is that, well, I played this just so much more. So, you know, it loses to another game because of it wins to another game just because of the time that I spent playing it, but that doesn't say anything about the game itself or about Tactics, because Tactics was a great game. Final Fantasy IX, I spent years playing it of my childhood because, you know, I lived with the idea of when you get a game, you have to know everything about the game, you have to beat the game to death. And getting a new game was like, you know, it was something that you didn't do too often. Now it's something that you do like whenever you have a little bit of spare money, because, you know, there are so many games nowadays. But, you know, it's whatever. Final Fantasy IX is one of my favorite games, and it probably always will be. So, you know, there is that. It's just a great the Final Fantasy games have always been one of my favorite franchises, and I'm sorry I'm going silent, but I want to give you guys something to watch while I'm talking, so I'm kind of working on not dying at the exact same time. The Final Fantasy games have always been one of my favorite franchises to ever play, but regardless of that fact, even with it being one of my favorite game franchises, it's still, the combat is as amazing as it is, it still falls off in comparison to other games. Oh, man, I messed up. That sucks. Well, with that being said, though, my next game is BioShock in number 8. And the reason BioShock is so high is because, well, I love me some BioShock. It's one of my favorite games. I don't think it has any DLC. If it does, then I need to go out and get that. But it's just amazing. BioShock is a great game. Despite the fact that I played so much of Final Fantasy IX, BioShock easily goes above it because I just love the story so much. Now, Final Fantasy IX has an amazing story as well. Don't get me wrong, but it's like the difference is that as much as I like the combat is kind of what wins this, because I love the combat in both. I love tactical combat, but in comparison, I like the kind of more being cautious and using a gun combat than the combat in BioShock or in Final Fantasy. Bleh. So, there is all of that, but at the same time, they're very close to each other on this list for a very good reason. But BioShock does have a lot of horror, it has a lot of horror themes and stuff that really kind of put it above the rest, I feel. So there is that. So the horror theme is really kind of why it gets put up so far up above where everything else is. And if it didn't have that horror aspect, it would probably be a little bit higher, but still on the list. Because without the horror aspect, it kind of just turns into BioShock Infinite. So, But next on my list is Dragon Quest VIII. I love the Dragon Quest games. In fact, I have Dragon Quest Heroes on PS4. I don't play it very often. I'm I've put about 30 hours into the game and I'm not very far yet because the game is just packed full of content, which is what I love. But with that being said, though, can there be too much content? Yeah, there can be, but in Dragon Quest there's always been a shit ton of content, so it's not like it's a big deal. But, the reasons I like the game is because I love the combat system. It has the JRPG combat system to it, which is nice, but that isn't why it wins out. The reason it wins out is because it is, just a game that I like a lot more, in that the story is phenomenal and it does something that other, silent protagonist characters don't do in games. The silent protagonist actually does have a background in this. You can name him, but he does have his own background, which is nice. Which, it's kind of uncommon, really, when you think about it, because most games that have a silent protagonist, Ocarina of Time, for example, Link never, he never speaks and doesn't have a background at all. So, that's, it's a very nice thing for it to have. So, Let's see. With all that being said, Dragon Quest is an amazing game, so are the other 3, and you should definitely go out and buy them when you can. But I'm going to move on to my last one for this video, and that would be, that would certainly be Dragon Age Origins, because as much as amazing as Dragon Age Inquisition is, Origins is and always will be the superior game. Because it does things that other games could only dream to do. The combat is kind of slow and more, you know, MMO oriented, but it's just so amazing. I love the kind of more slow-paced combat in comparison, but, you know, with all that being said, it mainly wins out due to the fact that, it's just so much more fun, at least to me. Which, you know, that's just a definite positive to me. So, as long as it has that kind of thing, then it's always going to be one of my favorite types of games. So, you know, that's that as far as decisions go for that game, or for that game. So, Origins has amazing DLC though. I would like to add that. It has Awakening and it has 90 others. Well, it has 9 others, but there's so much, it's unbelievable. Not that that's a bad thing. It adds so much gameplay and replayability, and it adds so much DLC, and so it has 30 hours or even maybe 40 hours of extra content, which is just so amazing. It's just, that's the kind of thing that you don't really get to see anymore from DLC. In fact, as you guys can see, the game that you guys the game that really displays that the most from, you know, having great DLC as well is actually Borderlands, or Borderlands 2. I never got the DLC for Borderlands 1, though I regret it, and I really wish I did. And when I get some extra money and, you know, that kind of thing, then I'll be getting Borderlands 1's DLC. Even if it is on the PlayStation, I still did like Borderlands 1 a lot. But, you guys should go out and get all the games that I've listed, if you're interested anyways. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but I do highly recommend all of these games to anyone who wants to either try something new or just has heard of these games and was looking for another opinion on them. So, with all that being said, I hope that I helped in some way, and part 2 will be out shortly. So, thank you all for coming by, and I will be talking to you guys about part 2 next time. So, bye-bye.